On November 26, 1930, a news article was published on the front page of the Medon Daily Journal newspaper in Canada. The title of the article was "Village of the Dead," and this news sent a wave of fear across Canada because an entire tribe in northern Canada had disappeared overnight without leaving any trace. Dear viewers, this is Anjikuni Lake, located in a remote area of northern Canada. A small settlement existed on the shores of this lake, where the Eskimo tribe lived. Around 100 to 150 people resided there, sustaining themselves by fishing in this lake. This is one of the most sparsely populated areas in northern Canada, where only a few thousand people live across millions of square kilometers. The reason behind this low population is the extreme weather conditions. Apart from fishing, hunting other animals in the surrounding areas was also common, and many hunters used to visit here. It was a freezing day in November 1930 when a hunter named Joe LaBelle arrived in this area for hunting. He became so engrossed in hunting that he didn't realize when darkness fell. He had an idea in mind. He would spend the night in the Eskimo tribe's village as he had done before. The people of this tribe were well known for their hospitality toward outsiders. So Joe LaBelle packed his belongings and started walking towards the Eskimo village. It was a moonlit night, but there was complete silence all around. Neither could he see anyone nor hear any voices, only the sound of his own footsteps. Although Joe had walked this path before, today something felt different. Usually the village dogs would start barking as soon as someone approached, as the villagers had tamed them. But today, even upon reaching the outskirts of the village, he found nothing but emptiness and silence. Feeling uneasy, Joe quickened his pace, thinking that perhaps the villagers were either asleep or had gone somewhere. From a distance, he could already see the tents of the village, with smoke rising from some of them indicating that there were people inside. However, even as he got closer, he did not hear any sound. Finally, when Joe LaBelle entered the village, he was shocked. There was no sign of any human or animal. What surprised Joe the most was that smoke was still rising from some of the houses, indicating that the fire inside was still burning. He entered one of the tents randomly, but there was no one inside. The same was the case with all the other tents. Perhaps Joe would have ignored all of this and left, but one thing deeply disturbed him. Some cooking utensils were still placed over the fireplaces, but the food inside them had already burnt. This meant that someone had prepared food for the night, but they had never eaten it. Even the women's sewing work was left unfinished. Clothes were left on sewing tables, and the needles still had thread in them. It seemed as if the villagers had suddenly vanished. But where did they go? Joe LaBelle began thoroughly searching the village. He noticed that the dogs, which the villagers had domesticated, were found tied with ropes. They had starved to death. Shockingly, food was present right in front of the dogs, but there was no one to feed them. In one place, Joe noticed a freshly dug grave. Looking at it, it seemed that it had not been dug long ago. Seeing all this, Joe LaBelle's fear and anxiety intensified. He was all alone in this village at night, witnessing something horrifying. The people of this region never travel anywhere without their dogs, yet here the dogs had been left behind, starving to death. The villagers had left behind their clothes, their food, and even their burning fires. Something had forced them to leave in an instant, so sudden that they couldn't even extinguish their fires or take anything along. Joe could no longer handle the fear, and as soon as possible he rushed to the nearest telegraph office. From there he contacted the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, RCMP, and described what he had witnessed. When the police arrived at the village, they confirmed that everything Joe LaBelle had reported was true. The police initially suspected that the village might have been attacked and all its people had been killed. However, if an attack had happened, There would have been bloodstains somewhere, or at least some scattered belongings due to a struggle. The police immediately launched a search operation to locate the missing villagers. During this search, they discovered something extremely bizarre, something even Joe had not noticed. The entire village was covered in snow, yet there were no footprints anywhere. There was only one set of footprints, which belonged to Joe LaBelle himself. This meant that, apart from Joe, no one had entered or exited this village. Then, where did the villagers go? Even the lake was frozen, and the villagers' boats were docked on land because fishing wasn't possible in this season. If the villagers had tried to swim across the lake or had been killed and thrown into the water, then the ice layer on the lake would have been broken somewhere. During the investigation, the police concluded that the villagers had already been missing for several days before Joe arrived. Because dogs do not die of hunger within just a day or two, and the smoke rising from the houses was from embers of extinguished fires, meaning the fires had been burning until recently. The police were left with numerous questions, but not a single answer. After months of searching, they finally closed the case as unsolved, and eventually, people forgot about it over time. 50 years later, in 1984, two writers, Roger Bohr and Nigel Blundell, wrote an article about this case. They linked the disappearance of the Eskimo tribe to aliens. In their article, they claimed that during their exploration of Anjikuni Lake, they met a hunter and his two sons. These men told them that they had often seen unidentified flying objects, UFOs, hovering over the lake. Strange objects of various shapes, seemingly moving toward the abandoned village where the Eskimo tribe once lived. Using this story as a basis, the writers theorized that perhaps aliens had landed that night and abducted all the villagers. However, their theory lacked any solid evidence, so most people dismissed it. After this, various other stories were created regarding the disappearance of the Eskimo tribe. But the truth remains that even after almost 100 years, no one has been able to answer the question, where did the people of Anjikuni Lake vanish, leaving behind no trace? The mystery of the disappearance of the Eskimo tribe remains unsolved to this day. We hope you enjoyed this video by ASTV. Don't forget to like and share this video. Your supportive comments are always appreciated. See you in the next amazing video.